Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 3:02. Um, and review the agenda. We have public comment, but I don't see any public here, so I'm assuming there's no public comment. Does anybody else have any comment? Okay. I don't have any opening comments other than to say hello. Thank you for being here. It looks like it's going to be a real lively meeting today with the four of us. But we do get to see the dashboard presentation before you present it to the board. This is the same presentation you're presenting to the in the board meeting later, right?
Yes, yes, it's the same.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Paula, it's all yours. I'll go ahead and mute myself.
All right, let me pull it up really quick on this computer. I can see, oh, no, I can't. I'm sure it'll be back up there, but. All right. I might just do that. Let me see. Do it. So I'm gonna move this chair because it's a little bit in the way. So this is just the opening slide for that just shows the dashboard overall. If you go to the California dashboard website and pull up any district, this is the slide that you would see. So we can go to the next slide. So that we're starting out with our completion rates for our 2024-25 assessments. For the ELA assessment, we had 97, as well as for the math. For our CAS, which is the California Science Test, we have 98% of our students, and for our LPAC summative assessment, we had 99% completion rate. And then the data gets presented to the California dashboard, and it also gets presented to ETS. So the ETS data looks a little different, but I like to show it because it shows it in a different way. So for our English language arts, we have 34% of our students meeting or exceeding the standard. That's a slight increase over last year, so we are moving in the right direction.
Hey, Paula, do you mind if we jump in and ask questions? Because later we won't be able to, but while you're moving through this, do you mind?
Not at all.
On the completion, your very first slide, what is like the goal of completion, or what is the state standard? Where do we stand with that? Because 99% seems really high, but is that
I mean, the goal is 100%. You don't get a ding if you're in the 90 percentile. But I don't know what that bar is I don't know what the low bar is because we always make sure we're above it.
okay?
If the
Sounds
penalty
good.
don't have a certain percentage, I don't recall if it's 85. It's I think it's not in the 90s. We always are above that. I'm not
Okay, so we're
saying for
exceeding
all. Yeah,
that mark by
most
plenty.
districts exceed that. And what this difference is we do have a few student families who opt out of testing, which is their right. And for our LPAC summative, I can tell you that we had one student who was not attending school at the time we were doing the LPAC. We weren't able to get him to take it even on the days he was here. And that 99% is that one student. So he's on our radar for this year. We're hopeful.
And typically you want to make that 95% or higher. And, Brianna, you're familiar with this, at your site or sites that you've served in the past, the makeup days. You just want to really make sure that you recapture the students who missed so that you could actually go, and make higher than 95%. And you want the assessment results for each individual student as much as you can get. So we have the makeup days too.
Yeah, the great thing with the makeup days is you actually have until the end of the school year to assess kids. So we really stay on that. If you don't get, like for the performance task, I think you have 5 days. If you don't get it done within the 5 days, like say they start, but they don't finish, because that does happen. Sometimes kids get picked up or they're not feeling well, they need to go home. They have 5 days to finish once they've started. I've seen times where that's happened and the student didn't return in time, or they came like on the 4th day and the teacher wasn't aware. It just didn't happen. I I could find out specifically on these, but when I was a testing coordinator, I, was doing that. So I knew specifically if a kid had missed it, why. So sometimes I know that those things happen. Do you want me to go on with the 5x5 for ELA? Okay, I know it's always hard when we're online. There's always a little delay. So go to one more slide up, Alex. Or thank you. So this is our ELA. That's the 5x5 grid. I like to use this grid because it shows you on the side whether we're very low, up to high, and it shows you across the top if you've made increases. So it kind of gives you data both ways. Our area of concern in the area that we're working on is Vasquez is really struggling with math, and so they've had a hard time kind of moving up, so they remain in the low status. And you can see at the top, if you're looking across the top, you can see that they did have a decline in their scores. And it was, well, this is ELA, you're gonna see this again in math. So we're working on that with the team and working on some, putting in some interventions and support in place to determine what our next steps are gonna be. Unfortunately, we don't have iReady at the high school. But I know iReady has been a really big help to help us close those gaps as it relates to instructional gaps in learning. So we're working on that piece. The good news is we did have increases district-wide. High Desert and Meadowlark had significant increases, which really carried the district. So as a whole, the district increased. High Desert and Meadowlark had significant increases in ELA. If you go to the next slide. In the next slide, it shows you by student group, so which groups moved. Again, for all district, our Hispanic and Latino students increased. Our students who maintained were our socioeconomic and our disadvantaged students. We didn't have any students who declined significantly or declined. We had maintained. We had increases also with our English learners and our long-term English learners. And we had an increase significantly for our students with disabilities. Again, this is with English language arts. And then the next slide. So the next slide looks at the dashboard itself and gives you the wheel that you can kind of see the colors and how they align with those student groups. So for us, we had 4 groups in the orange. And this shows exactly like this English learners increased by 5.8 points. They're still below standard, but they're moving in the right direction. Our long-term English learners are also below standard, but they increased by 8.5 points as well. Our socioeconomic students are still in the orange and they maintained. Our students with disabilities increased 17.9 points. However, they do remain in the orange. Our white student group is below average and they maintain. So they have like a 0.1 in the negative, but it's considered in the maintain area because it's such a small number. And our Hispanic students are 1 level up there in the yellow and they increased by 8.8. Are there any questions before we move on?
Yeah, I do. I have some questions. So according to this slide here, basically you can say we're below standards in every single category. Is that I'm reading that right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do we compare this to last year's and the years before? Because when I see these numbers and I'm not in education, I don't know. First of all, like if you go back to the first 2 charts when it says 27% or 30%, I don't know how that compares to other school districts in the area because I'm not in education. So I don't know if that's really bad or not. Also, I don't know where we were last year. Are we moving up in the trend? Are we moving down? I would like to know some things like that, so I can kind of gauge where we're headed. Because I'm not in education, I don't know what these numbers mean. When I look at this chart here, I see we're below everything. Now, do I know, is Palmdale like that? Is Lancaster like that? Are the similar school districts the same? And we're just average? So that's something that I'd like to know.
They're really good questions. You can see from this slide that in each of these areas we increased. So I don't know if I don't know if it shows you like You can't see me pointing at this, right? If you look at the
No,
first,
I can see you pointing. I see the increase.
right,
But
so we increased in all areas. Some of the increases are significant. If I go back a slide, you can see that if you go back one slide, you can see that we had significant increases, and this is the ELA, the English Language Arts. And it's all the way on the right at the bottom. With our students with disabilities, they had a significant increase. And then you can see that we had increases with our Hispanic and Latino group, as well as our English learners and our long-term English learners. Now, but yes, the orange does indicate that they're still in the low status.
okay, so if you're going from orange to yellow to green, is that indication of progress? It was just hard to read this
Yeah,
5x5 here, not knowing what you're.
It is. When you're moving up from orange to blue, that's a move up. And also if you're all the way to the left, where it says declined significantly at the top, you want to move toward the right. Which for our English language arts, we moved towards the right with every group.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and I can get you, I mean, I worry at the board that it's too much, but let me say at our next, if this is okay with you guys, at our next Ed Subcommittee meeting, I would be happy to do an overall comparison with our district and the state, our district with Palmdale, and our district with other rural districts.
I would love that because I
Yeah.
want to see where do we stand with the rest of the county.
Okay, I'm just gonna put a note. But I would love to present that. It's really interesting and good data. I worry at like public meetings that it's too much, but in these meetings, that would be great.
I do have a question slash suggestion. The previous slide, the 5x5s, we'll see kind of throughout this presentation. And for the board meeting tonight, to kind of at a glance, because we're going through these slides pretty quickly, the 5x5 is, for sake of transparency, very difficult to kind of grasp immediately without diving into it deeper. My suggestion would just be, and folks jump in or shut me down, what have you, feel free. The ELA by student group indicating by the subgroups increase, decline, stagnant. This slide in particular just shouts out to me. It's a little bit more clearer. The 5x5 just for consumption quickly is quite difficult to understand.
It's a lot. It is a lot.
Do we remove the 5x5s? Do we just keep it to this?
I would love the team's input. I'm not married to any of these.
I mean, when I look at the 5x5, it takes me a while just to try to figure out what's going on in that with the categories and the previous years. It's not straightforward if you're not in education. I'm trying, I spent at least 5 minutes trying to figure it out, and I still got it wrong. So, yeah.
Okay, I can hide those slides from the presentation and just focus on the slides that look like this for the board presentation.
I think that's a good idea. For future meetings, I'm not going to ask you to go into detail right now, but for future meetings, when we see one of our schools in the bottom left corner of a 5x5, I think that needs major attention. And why are we decreasing? I think increased, we always want to see increased, no matter where we are with the state or anything. If we're increasing in our points like we're showing right now, most of these are increased with the exception of one maintained. I would like to do better, but it's not, we're at least maintaining. But when we're seeing groups decreasing, and like at the very bottom left of that 5x5, I want to know what are we doing to target that? And when you brought that up, you said, well, they don't have iReady there. And we've already seen how iReady is working to increase at the other schools. Can we get iReady there? Is there something else that we can get if we can't do iReady? How are we targeting that? What are we doing to like intervention and really increase those and at that level?
So I can tell you what we're doing. At the next meeting too, at the Ed Subcommittee meeting, if this is agreeable to everybody, I would love to do a breakdown by school
That would be fantastic. So
A little bit more.
you can put my answer to that question, put it on the next meetings for just for the sake of time. And I want you to be able to get through your presentation here. But if we could just make a note of, what are we doing to raise these scores? That would be awesome.
Okay. All right, and I'm just taking notes, but yeah, I would love to do that. So
Thank you.
before we move on from ELA, are there any other questions? We're good, okay. And I will hide the 5x5 grid for our public audience. So thank you for that feedback. Okay, so for the mathematics, this maintained, but again, our 3 schools do affect the overall data, but right now we have 19% of our students meeting or exceeding, which that's a really low number. I don't necessarily say that during the board meeting, but that is low. That is a number we really do want to see improve. It is an area where overall statewide and in other districts, math tends to be lower than English language arts. Groups do struggle with that, but that is not a reason for us to not work towards improving that number. I will say, like, this is also, we want to keep in mind that the SBAC data is a test that's taken at one period in time. It's not data that gives us information throughout the year. And when we present our iReady data, we're presenting data that's more local data and that is shows more truly student growth, right? So even when we're seeing an improvement, which I agree with you, we want to see improvement, you're looking at different kids every year. Although there are some charts that show improvement, and I'll share those at our next meeting too, that are part of the dashboard that show our growth, and our district is really moving in the right direction. So I'm gonna do another 5x5 grid with you. Okay. It's on the next slide. So again, if you look at the far left corner or the column, it's telling you the very low, the medium, the high. And you do want to try to move up from red towards the green or the blue. If you're looking at that top, moving towards the right, you're looking at how we increased or maintained. So what we see, the first movement we normally see when we start to improve, and I can show you at the next meeting, the grids from last year and this year, you normally move across the top first before you move up. Do you have a question on that? It's because of the way the numbers are. Like, I don't make the numbers, but the numbers that would be on the far left going up and down are a bigger number. Like, you have to get more to move up. It's less numbers, like it's a smaller what's the word, like from 0 to 5, it's a smaller segments of numbers across the top. Where at the other side, and I'll go over this with you at the next meeting, at the other side, some of them you have to move almost 70 before you move up. Does that make sense?
I feel really stupid when I look at this chart because
I'm sorry.
I mean, I take it from the top here where it says very highest status, and you go over to the green, then go into the 3 blues, and it says none. I don't know, is that referring to Vasquez or Meadowlark or High Desert? Maybe I'm just
so
stupid.
On this grid, math is in the red. We are low in math, and we did decline and these are our kids last year. So it's and the other thing that makes it hard to compare our data is because we're small, we only have 1 school. So we're talking about like 95 kids.
Okay, I get it now. So wherever it says Vasquez or Meadowlark, that's where we're at right now. So a Meadowlark, we're low on math, but we did increase. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then High Desert. So everything else above that just means nothing. It's just placeholders, right? Where we could be. Okay.
Yes.
I get it. So I just got to look for where we're at as far as where it says the school name and then that. Okay. I get it now.
Yeah, and High Desert did have and they had a significant increase in their math, but we're still low. But again, that number, it's so interesting. I'll share the numbers with you next time. But the number from like very low to low is like 70. Like, you have to move up like 70 points before you move up. Once you go from medium to high, it's like 5 points. It's very interesting how they created the way the numbers move up and down, like the scale. Again, I didn't create the scale, but I was looking at the scale today. I'll explain it to you guys in a little bit more detail at our next meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I wish there was a graph there you can see the years and the numbers where you're progressing or decreasing or increasing,
There's some of
as you
that.
go along.
I have a couple of those in here, and I will do there are some comparisons too year to year that I can share with you guys as well. And if you decide like that information, we want to share that at the board meeting in February. We are doing the LCAP interim presentation, and I can share some of that information there as well. If that makes sense.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me go to the next slide.
We could keep the 5x5 slides and just have George, present these specific slides tonight, if that, no?
Yeah, I don't think so. Thank you.
But I do really appreciate your feedback. I love these, but I look at them all the time. And so it's really hard for me to gauge like what other people see.
Yeah, I get it now. Now I understand it, but it took me a while to figure it out.
So this is the same thing, but it's just by the student groups. And this one, and I don't know why, again, I don't create these on their site. This one actually has the numbers on the sides. So you can see that from very low, you go from 95.1, you have to move up to like 95 to 25. It shows you. But for this one, as far as our math and our student groups, we don't have anybody in column 1 under decline significantly. We do have a decline for our English learners, and we had a maintain for our students that were white. We had our long-term English learners, our socioeconomically disadvantaged, and our Hispanic or Latino students also maintain. We didn't have any groups increase, but we did have a significant increase with our students with disabilities. And then this is not school specific, this is district, it's all the students.
In addition to, I know this presentation that's coming up for the LCAP interim report, mid-year report, just like we did last year, each individual school site will be presenting their highlights coming up, starting in February with Meadowlark, March would be High Desert, and then April will conclude with Vasquez. And within their presentations, they'll be highlighting their academic progress within each specific school site within ELA and MAP. So we'll get a little bit more in depth there as well.
Yeah, and then they'll have the iReady data, which I think we did some stuff with the iReady data too. And the iReady data, again, that's your kids that are here this year, and you do beginning, middle, and end of year, so you can see the growth. The California dashboard tells us on one day that our kids tested, this is how they're doing, but it does give us data to help us decide as a district what we want to do. Like we really focused on chronic absenteeism, which is when we get to that. Was it a year and a half ago? We started on 2 years ago on that because we're like, we really need to get kids to school if we want to see these numbers move. And we had a big increase there, and we're now seeing the movement with the academics as well, which now our focus will continue on chronic absenteeism, but there's a real, the push right now is math and language arts. It's really the academics. Do you have questions on that?
Can I add something about them? Can I insert something? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share our students with disabilities. I know that our special ed director, Devonna Colin, and Nicole Chen worked really hard last year on making sure that all the students' accommodations were in there correctly into. And we really felt the impact of that at High Desert, and I'm sure other sites also, because really extra attention was paid to make sure that all of those students had their accommodations properly in the testing system. And so I think that is reflected in the increase that they made. So I think when we do target things and we put extra attention in specific areas, overall, we're seeing like we focused on absenteeism, we focused on the students with disabilities. Unfortunately, you can't focus on everyone all at the same time. But as we're, intentionally targeting specific things that we see as concerns, we're making huge growth. So I just want to celebrate that.
And I mean, we did focus on our EL students in their language acquisition, because that's the focus with designated language. And we did see big growth there as well. We're actually really making good growth. It doesn't look that great, I guess, on the 5x5, But whenever you see movement where you have kids that are increasing or significantly increasing, you're doing really well. But there's always areas of growth, and I'll do comparisons with other districts, and you'll see like other districts have areas of growth, and you'll see primarily math is always, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'll compare us to a high performing, high economic status district as well, just so you can see the trends are there for all districts, not just us. But can we do better? Absolutely, we definitely can. All right, I'm gonna go to the next slide. This is the slide you like better. It's a little easier to understand. So this shows our math by student groups. So we did have a decline for our English learners in math. And again, another thing that happens is when kids are working on their language acquisition or they're working on ELA, sometimes you see a slip in another subject area because they're really working on that subject. And once they start to close some of those gaps, so in their English language arts department, like that part, when you start to close some of those gaps, you'll see kids have that kind of bandwidth to start focusing more on math. And so with our Hispanic group, that group maintained their scores. Our long-term English groups also maintained their scores in math. Our socioeconomic disadvantaged kids also maintained. We did again see an increase with our students with disability, and our students in the white student group maintained their scores. Questions? All right, we'll go to the next slide. We're going to move to chronic absenteeism is up next. And so I did put a comparison slide in here. And the reason I didn't with the others is it makes a lot of slides with math and English language arts. We did actually discuss that when I was putting this together. And again, I will add that to our next presentation. So in 2024, again, we're still in the yellow, right? So when you're looking at the wheel, you see we're still the same. However, and what's interesting is we had a decline of 8.9% this year, which means we currently have a percentage of 27.7 of for our chronic absenteeism. So our rate is lower, which is good. So you can see last year in 2024, our chronic absenteeism rate was 36%, and we had a decline of 15%. So we are still moving in the right direction. We didn't go as far this time, but that's because our chronic absenteeism has dropped. So as we continue to move to getting more kids at school, the percentage will increase. It just won't increase generally at as quick of a rate.
So on the math and the ELA, all that we're looking at increasing is good. But on the chronic absenteeism and the suspensions, we're looking at declined is good.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, that means more kids are coming to school.
And this is not from when this year is when we really started doing
It was last year.
right. So this school year is when we really started in on the STIS, pushing STIS more. And I know that this year already, we've already increased our ADA rates. So I'm curious this time next year how much that's going to go down, because we're already seeing better attendance this year, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, but even as we regain some ADA through independent study as well as independent study will affect our chronic absenteeism rate, I believe, but Saturday school won't necessarily change that, but it will help us recover ADA.
Right.
We are definitely getting more ADA recovery through the independent study as opposed to the Saturday school, but we still will see some movement because of the Saturday and attendance recovery that's also on Saturday as well. So that's a good point. Questions before I move on?
You know, I'm actually looking at the Palmdale their dashboard, and we're the same. We're at both at 27%. So at least I can get an idea of how we. I mean, they have a bigger school, and the math percentages are pretty much the same as well. So Just wanna
Yeah,
put
it's
that out
pretty
there.
easy and quick. You can pull up LA County and California as well. And like if you're on the California dashboard, it's super easy to put a district in and just put the
year.
year and all of it, that all comes up. And then if you click on, like, say you click on math, you'll get the student groups and with the wheels like this. When you're on that page, if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, it'll say detailed description or more detail. If you click on that, you can choose what you want as far as, do you want to look at student groups? Do you want to look at suspension? That's where you'll get the 5x5 grids.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
and
So when I look at this and I'm looking at it as a view from a parent and I don't know anything else that's going on and I see these numbers and in my mind, it's really bad. But because they're not going to take the time to look at the California dashboard and say, hey, how do we compare it to these other schools? They're going to think that we're just, we're doing below standards in every single category. But when you look at this and you say, hey, well, this is how we compare as a parent, as someone who doesn't know this stuff, it'd be nice to say, okay, well, I guess we're on average, compared to all the school districts around here. That's the way I feel. I'm sure parents will feel the same way as far as looking at these numbers.
I have an hour between these presentations. I can add a couple more slides that show California or LA County or
No, I'm
Palmdale.
just saying, for future references. That way we don't seem like it's like it's only us that have these low numbers because they're not going to take the time to look them up.
Yeah. It puts it in perspective.
It does. For me, it does.
does.
When I saw Palmdale at the same numbers, I'm like, okay, we're right about there. We want to increase. Of course, we want to get better, but at least we're
Right.
not this outlier here amongst all the other districts that we're doing so horrible,
Mhm.
But so yeah.
Yeah, we're not. That's a really good point.
Doesn't negate our efforts and we focus in on our efforts, but just taking a look at it, as a bird's eye view, it puts it in perspective. That's all.
Yeah, well, I was already gonna add a couple slides anyway, so what's
Okay.
2 more? They're super easy to make. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one, which shows the 5x5 grid. Sorry.
Should I skip this one? I don't know. It's up to them.
Dr. Dave,
I like them now because I can understand them.
once you
There
get
you
them,
go.
they like give you, but yeah. So again, you have on the side, you have your very high, and this one has the percentages, so it shows you like, how do we move up to the next level? That's the one that's all the way to the right, I mean the left. And then you have across the top, and you can see how the scale's smaller across the top. But they want, what the state is trying to say is like, oh, we want to show you that you're improving, right? So that you improve both ways, but. So we don't have anyone on an increase significantly, which is good. Again, we have nothing, which is also good. Even maintaining, we don't want to maintain our scores. We really needed to get more kids to school. So we don't have any groups there as well. Actually, we don't have any groups in decline. We had a significant decline, which is good. You want the decline. For both schools. Now, Vasquez doesn't show up on here because the high schools they're monitored through the graduation rate and the college and career, which we'll do next. But so on this one, both of our schools they may be in the very high for chronic absenteeism, but they moved a lot. That's why they're all the way to the left. And we are, as far as a district, I know we're in line with chronic absenteeism with LA County. And as far as, all the districts, if you look at several districts, you're probably going to see decreases across the board. Most districts are moving in the right direction in this area, and primarily because a lot of them, and we work with other districts, we attend a lot of LACO workshops, and we have other districts, like we share our ideas about like, what are we doing that's working? They share with us what they're doing. And so again, the push is to get kids to school because besides us, other districts can't really get their kids to do better either if they're not at school. So if you were to look at the trends, I didn't look at Palmdale, but I look at LA County and California as a whole, and they're all decreasing and getting more kids to school. Do you have questions? Let me go to the next one. The other next 5x5 grid is 4 student groups. So we didn't have any students increase significantly. We did have an increase in our long-term English learners, and that's a small group for us. So Nicole Chen and I are already looking at seeing who specifically those students are so that we can reach out to the families and find out what's going on, because we 2 years ago did empathy interviews with our English learners, long-term as well, all of our English learners, to find out like what were the barriers for them coming to school, how could the district support them so we could get more of our English learners to school, as well as we interviewed students that were coming to school to find out like why you came to school. And we interviewed parents as well. And so that we got a lot of information about how we could better support our English learners coming to school. We focused on our English learners because that was one area that was in the red for differentiated assistance. And due to our efforts for focusing on one group, it had a positive impact on all of our student groups. So again, we had no students that maintained. We had our English learners and our students with disabilities that actually declined, which is good. That means they are coming to school more. As a district, we moved significantly a decline. And we have more of our socioeconomically disadvantaged, our Hispanic or Latino students and our white students attending school. Questions on that? And our long-term English learners are students that have just not redesignated for 6 years or more. So they're generally going to be our middle school and our high school students. And that is a small group, but it is a student group that we're really focused on supporting because we really do want them to redesignate to English learners. So again, and we had a huge, and I don't know if it's on this, but I think we redesignated 35 students last year, 25 the year before. That's a really big number. So the work that our teachers and our principals are doing at the site level is really having a positive impact on our student learning. Questions before I move on? So this is just another way of looking at our chronic absenteeism. This does show from 21 to 22, 22 to 23, all the way to 24, 25. It shows Meadowlark, High Desert, Vasquez, and the district as a whole.
Yeah, High Desert.
Yeah, they're doing great.
That is so interesting to see. High Desert used to be the most and now they're the least. And High Desert used to be Vasquez used to be the least and now they're the most, but they haven't had very much movement, but the other schools have had a ton of movement. That's a really interesting graph. I like it.
Yeah, I have a couple other slides that I'm going to add to this because one of the things, again, I just keep digging in and you find more and more data through EduClimber. Actually, Meadowlark for this last year, so between 24 and 25, Meadowlark actually had the most growth as far as getting more kids back to school. I mean, they also had the highest need. And now Vasquez, which has been historically, well, I guess not if you look, oh, that's Meadowlark. Vasquez, which has been historically low, is now, even though it's not a lot, they actually are a little bit higher than the other two schools.
Mhm.
So, or as far as improvement, I shouldn't say that. Meadowlark, I think, is still higher overall. But I'm going to add, again, so I apologize, those weren't part of this presentation. But I did want to add them because just another way of looking at the data for our absenteeism. Michelle's like, wait till you see this year. Yeah, well,
High Desert's good at least.
Yeah, doing great.
Yeah, so Michelle said, wait till you see this year. I will say, like, we pull our attendance. It's an Aries report. I can actually pull that out of EduClimber too. And we go like down the list of absentees and who we need to send letters to. And I'm pretty sure High Desert didn't have any on even the last time we looked. It's really good. And we're good to model. The other schools were working to model some of the practices that they're doing at High Desert as it relates to chronic absenteeism, so that we're like creating a system at all three schools that works. So
yeah, if it works, definitely share it out and start it everywhere.
it works. Yeah. And so it's just that when it's just doing things in your system that you're creating with fidelity that makes a difference. And so I'm sure she'll share more about that, but it is good. And all the schools are moving in the right direction. Again, you know, you can speak to, well, Michelle is part of it for sure. So I don't want to discount that. She does a great job, but also having that consistent leadership really just makes a difference. Like you know, even for me being here and being able to do this work with our teams and seeing this movement, the consistency just really helps because we've been saying the same thing to each other for at least for 3 years. And for Michelle, it's been 5, that, you know, you're hearing the same thing, your teachers, your students, your parents, they're hearing the same thing. So it makes a difference. So anyway, sorry, I digress. Sorry.
That's good stuff.
We can go to the next slide. So I talked a little bit earlier about our English learner progress. So all students are in the blue. So we do have an area we're in the blue. It doesn't show up on the grid that way because the grid is about growth across those numbers and that scale. But for our English learners, the progress that they made, they had an increase in 25%, so 65%. They increased by 25%, which means 65% of our students are making progress. Our long-term English learners are in the green. 60% of our long-term English learners are making progress, and there was a 5.1% increase. Although even though on that other slide where I have a long-term English learner in the red, that again, just means that I need to reach out and see who specifically the students are and what their need is. But as it relates to their English learning, as opposed to their math, they made significant improvements. Questions on that? Go to the next slide. Another grid. So the grid on all the way to the left has the numbers again, and each of these grids, the numbers are different. So they use a different scale. And then you can see across the top, it's showing our significant or decline significantly across to increase significantly. So on this one, you want to increase. You want your kids to increase in their English learner progress. We had no students in our decline significantly category. We had no students in our decline. We had no students in our maintain, which is excellent. We had our English learners at High Desert increased and are in the blue. So they increased and they're at the highest level of performance as far as making progress. And at Meadowlark, we had a significant increase, and again, we're in the blue. So they're at the highest level that they can be in. So I guess what makes it a little confusing is how can we have kids in the blue and then have other areas in the red? This has to do with their English language and their progress towards redesignating. And again, we have had a lot of students redesignate. Primarily, we think because at High Desert and at Vasquez as well, they have the designated class where both of those teachers are fantastic and have good admin support, and they're just doing a lot of really good designated work with the kids. And Meadowlark as well. We had a lot of kindergartners who tested the beginning who redesignated. So it's just, I think the overall support that we're giving to the students as it relates to their English acquisition. Questions? All right, I'm gonna go to the next slide. And this just is another presentation. It again shows the English learners in the blue. It shows that 65% of them are making progress. And the long-term English learners are in the green. 60% of those students are making progress. And that was a 5% increase. And this actually shows the number of students. So we have 33. This was last year. So some of these kids graduated. These are our numbers from last year. And our next slide will go to suspension rates, if there's no questions. All right. So in our suspension rate, this is also an area that you want to decline. You want to have less suspensions. We are in the green, and I believe we were in the yellow last year, so we moved up. We had a decline of 2.2%. And the next slide. Just breaks it down a little bit more. The area of growth, the area that we really want to focus on is our students that are homeless in the orange. It's not a big group for us, but they are students that we're suspending more than we want to be suspending. So what we do with this is we run reports so we know who those students are. We look at their suspensions so we can figure out what they're being suspended for. We talk to admin, counselors, social workers, and their families, as well as the students, to find out what's going on so that we can better support them. Because the goal for us would be to find supports that keep them in school while not getting in trouble. And then for the rest of our student groups, which includes our English learners, our Hispanic students, our long-term English learners, our socioeconomic disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, and our white students are in the green. And that's because we had decreases in our suspension rates for our students. Questions? And this is the suspension rate grid. So we didn't have any student groups that increased significantly or increased. We did have a maintenance at Meadowlark, and that's because their suspension rate is almost zero. So they maintain. They don't really have room for growth because they just generally don't suspend students. And then we didn't have, just in the decline, we didn't have any. All of our movement was a decline that was significant. Kids moved from the yellow up, and that was at High Desert and Vasquez. Questions? So I will tell you too, if you're on these reports and you see that there's links on these reports, if you get into the dashboard and you go to the 5x5 grid and you click on these links, it shows you specifically what it's a number value, but it shows you the number that kids move, that we moved in what direction. So it gives you even more information. So for our graduation rate, so for the dashboard, we had a late graduate that didn't get reported to CalPAD. So the dashboard shows our graduation rate at 93.7. But looking at our local data and confirming with our counselors at Vasquez High School, we did have 100% of our students who graduated last year. So I'm sharing our local data, which is on the right, as well as the data that was reported to our dashboard. Questions on that?
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's 3 or 4 years in a row that we've had 100% graduate.
That's
Yes,
correct.
it has. So if you look at last year, it was 98.1. And what happens is sometimes it's not exactly 100%, because if we have a student who moves from our school and doesn't re-enroll in another school and it's their graduation year, it impacts us, even though they're no longer our student. But yes, we've had 100% graduation rate, I think 5 years.
Something crazy, like that's
4 years.
awesome
4
for
years.
For all the years I've been here, I've
Starting
our
with
counselors and our staff at Vasquez. Because that's like really incredible. Those are incredible numbers.
yeah, it's really good.
This June might be 5 years, so that's.
We'll go for 5. For our next slide, this is a new indicator, the College and Career Readiness Indicator. This is an indicator that doesn't, so our percentage is actually a little bit higher. And again, it's how it gets reported to CalPADS, and for us, and actually this is all districts, we're way ahead of the game on this because our district started working with its CCGI, which I don't know exactly what that stands for. We approved it at the board. It's another platform that the state required us to start using, and they gather the data, and that platform has to talk to Aries, and most school districts didn't have Aries aligned with that platform because we never used it before. But our counselors started working with our IT team like well over a year ago. So we're, as a district, almost done with those corrections. So if you look, we increased on this just because we're getting our data in line, but our number's a little bit higher, but we even had an increase this year. And we have currently 45% of our students prepared. And if we go to, yes.
How do we measure this?
On the next slide, I'm going to show you the metrics. I was like, if someone asked me that, I don't know all the metrics, so I went ahead and put them on a slide. I'm going to do a comparison for you too first. They had a good comparison chart for this in the dashboard. So this compares 2019 to, there was no data in between because of COVID, 2023, 24, and 25. And so you can see in 2025, our prepared number has gone up to 45 compared to like 21%. Now, I will say, if you go look at my presentation from last year, our number was higher. It just wasn't being reported because we had to work with Aries and CalPADS and CCGI to align it. But again, it's still a number that we're working on growing. So we've increased significantly in this area. And then let me show you the metrics. Do you have questions on this? So for the metrics for college and career indicators, to be prepared, you have to get a 3 on the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments. There's multiple ways that you can get credit for advanced placement. You take 2 classes. You have to get a 3. There's like 4 or 5 different ways under advanced placement that you can get that credit. College credit courses, which we offer, we have several kids that take courses through colleges off campus and get credit with us, and also our CTE courses. Also the state seal of biliteracy.
Should we move the slide? Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Like I'm
Alex, can
reading.
you just
I'm sorry,
move to
Alex.
Slide 1,
I'm reading and not even paying attention.
please. Thank you,
I'm
Alex.
sorry. Thank you. I was looking at my computer. So for students to be prepared, the metrics is Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments at level 3 or higher. Advanced placement, and there's several ways that combinations of AP classes and AP scores you can get to meet that requirement. College credit courses, like as I shared earlier, we have several students who take classes at AV and Antelope Valley and in other colleges where that becomes part of their high school career, and CTE courses, which I know you guys have heard a lot of presentations recently from our counselors about the many offerings we have for CTE. And then the state seal of biliteracy, and then having met the university or California and California State University requirements that are the A through G requirements, as well as the CTE. So there's several ways to make that prepared kind of metric. And for students approaching prepared, which was the second part of the previous slide on the bar chart, is just, it's the same metrics, there's just only 3 of them as opposed to the 5. Questions on that?
Yeah, this is combined with the career as well. Like they're both combined. Like, when you say
Yeah.
I'm preparing you for college or I'm preparing you for a career path, this is the same matrix, right? There's nothing different for the career paths, right?
Yeah, no, it's college and career. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because, and I mean, because college and career could be college and then career, it could be college and career at the same time. It could be career and then college, it could be career. So there's a lot of ways that kids, but approach this once they graduate. But we want to make sure at the high school level that we're preparing students for all the different types of opportunities they might have that could involve college and career in different ways.
So, is there any preparation for college for students who are not in AP classes, are not taking courses at a university, college campus? Is there anything that we do to prepare them for? Because I get a lot of students in my courses that are clearly not prepared. They're not coming from all over, but clearly they're not prepared. Never even wrote I would say, an essay before, but is there anything for those students who are not in AP courses, or not, do we have like a generalized curriculum for people preparing for college?
Yeah, and we have the career technology education courses too. So that is part of that, like as opposed to AP, some kids take AP, some kids take college technology, like the carpentry classes, the culinary classes, the biology.
So our students themselves would have to elect to get, of course, one of these as a elective or core class. They would have to decide themselves. There's nothing that we make them go through that says, "Hey, this is going to be an introduction of preparing you for college level." Because a lot of times, I believe these students they believe that their courses for at a college level is going to be the same as in high school, so they don't take these courses. So I guess my question is, there's nothing else that we can do as far as preparing them other than them electing to go to these courses.
It's kind of so A through G are the courses that you would take, and that all of our math courses, our English courses, our science courses, those are all A through G approved courses. So if kids take those courses and pass, then that gives them kind of the minimal level for college entrance. As far as I understand that trend, like when you leave high school and you get to college, kids that aren't prepared, sometimes it just there's so many different factors that affect that. But as far as us trying to do our best to make sure that we're preparing kids, it's an ongoing, like if you spoke with the counselors, they speak with our kids at least 3 times a year. And there's like a check sheet, a checkoff sheet. I can share those with you. I can just email them to you if you want to see them. That the counselors use when they meet with the students to walk them through this process.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I don't have statistics in front of me, but I do know for many colleges and universities, they're grappling with the same scenario that you presented, Dr. De Jesus, as far as English and math and essays. And, many of them, with their assessments to kind of gauge where they fall for, let's say, their freshman year, they take a lot of remediation courses as they enter, as you all know. So.
Yeah, I think math, I mean, just from what I've seen, I mean, math is such a gatekeeper course at the college. It's super hard. And that's why, again, I know that SBACs, they're only for 11th graders, except science is for 10th graders, but it's so important that the teachers remind kids to go ahead and release their scores to the universities because they can become conditionally approved for entry-level classes and not have to take the remediation classes. Like the kids need to, we need to do a better job, I think, explaining to kids how important what we're doing is to help them to be college and career ready. But if you've been a high school teacher, and I have, some kids really buy into that. And some kids just, there's just a lot going on with kids. And sometimes it's hard for them to make that connection to how important school's going to be until they get to college. I mean, I probably was one of those kids. There were classes that I remember taking, like biology, having to draw a graph. And I'm like, I don't even think I know how to do this. And I'm like, how do you not know how to draw a bar graph? But I remember when I first, and the scale, like I didn't even understand like that the scale like had to be like, if it was 0 to 5, then you better go 5 to 10. Like it has to be the same. But I learned that, I realized like there were some classes I didn't attend. I'll be honest, like, well, there's no one in the public on this meeting. It's just us, right? I didn't go to school.
We upload this.
Oh, so can you cut this out? My editors. So I'll just say personally my own story. I love,
Hang on, I'm gonna step away for 1 second. I will be right back. You guys continue on without me.
but there were courses that I didn't always attend school. I wouldn't say my attendance probably was very good, but I learned when I, went to college, again, education was super important to me. And I filled in those gaps. Like you become a different learner, right? When you become an adult.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with you because that's the same with me. I wasn't the academic person especially when I graduated high school. That's why I went in the army for 6 years, but it took me 13 years to go back to school. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. And another thing where there was a student that graduated about 3 years ago from a high desert, not high desert, Vasquez, and he's a family friend, and also, he wanted to go to college. After 2 years, I'm like, why haven't you done anything? And he's like, you know what? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I don't know about what FAFSA is. I don't know where, the first thing to do and how do I enroll? And I think a little bit like, I'm sure that he wasn't asking these important questions while he was in high school, but they are important things. And coming from a family with no, first generation college graduate, you know, I had to sit down with this young man and actually tell him exactly, where to start. And I'm thinking that did we fail him as a district, not preparing him, even though, he probably didn't ask the right questions. So that's why I was, I was interested about this college and career indicators and the metrics and seeing how well we're doing with informing these young students when they graduate and, of what the whole process is, especially somebody who's first generation college.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm first generation college. I do understand, and it's way harder now. Like FAFSA is way harder than it was. I think all of it's way harder. I mean, and I know that the counselors have lots of meetings. They have parent meetings. They meet the kids. Like I said, I can share with you the checklist, and it's just I think sometimes when you're a kid and if you have other things going on like I did, and perhaps you as well, I didn't always make the connections, right? Because there was something else in my life that was happening that was causing noise. And so I didn't hear it, even though it might have been being said right to me. The other noise in my life like took precedence, if that makes sense.
We're,
Yeah.
we're talking about connections. You mentioned the word connections. I'm gonna turn it over to Michelle so she could talk a little bit about how can we forget. It's a little bit of a plug for one of our agenda items tonight, but for next year, the service contract for Avid 26-27 school year. So building the Avid, the college going culture district-wide has a significant impact. Michelle, do you want to share a little bit
Sure.
about Avid efforts?
So we've made a lot of efforts towards including Avid at all levels. And we've been sending people to Summer Institute to really get it into our schools, and intentionally sending different people so that we're trying to end up with all of our staff trained in Avid. And so when you're talking about, are there classes that prepare our kids, we're doing that through the Avid elective. We're doing it through Avid advisory. The high school takes field trips to college. I'm on my third child that's about to graduate from Vasquez High School, with number 4 as a sophomore, and the support and the more college focus, I would say, for my number 3 kid compared to my number 1 kid that was, 4 years ago, is pretty significant. There's been a really big shift in helping our kids get prepared. When Jake was there, he had a principal that sat down with him, but that was about it as far as filling out the FAFSA, and it was new for us because he was my first. And here I am in education, but he's still my first kid, and it's still my first experience with college now, which looks different than when I went to college. And so looking at that, just a comparison, Mackenzie had even more support, and there were more parent workshops and answers to questions and things pushed out. Zach has had even more than that. Like, there's been so many more workshops and college tours, like they're about to go on another one. The connections that we've made with COC and ABC, those didn't exist 4 years ago. The ability to take classes. So there's just that we may not see it all. And I would say if you're talking to a kid from 3 years ago, I'd probably agree with you, because I have a kid that graduated 4 years ago, and you know what I mean? Like we weren't as good at it then, but we've made significant strides towards helping kids figure out, what do you want to do next, and helping them kind of get on that path for what that looks like. But Avid definitely is part of it as well, because that's part of the Avid program. And it's not just how to write an essay, it's how do you even take notes? How do you, we have kids that take notes and then they never look at them again. And I'm like, what's the point of taking notes if you don't pull them out and use them to study? So there's just things like that are like what we see as adults as, well, of course you would take them out and study, that our kids just aren't even thinking that direction. And so that's kind of where Avid is at, is it's teaching all those foundational skills that you need to be a good student, along with a focus on where are you going. And so they do college research, and Avid has added career to it. It's not just college anymore. It's now also career. So it's, where are you going after this? What do you need to do now to start tracking your way to that? So thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you
It's a
for
big
that
piece.
full,
Avid is a big
input,
piece.
because I've only been here 4 years, so it sounds like that shift has happened kind of since Dr. Sahaki came. I mean, honestly, leadership makes a difference.
Mhm.
And I've only been here since you've been here, so I don't have that reflection. So the history is really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
I'm done. If you have other questions for me, I'm happy to try to address them.
I don't. Thank you for that great presentation.
Yeah, I think I asked all of my questions, and we made our list for things that we want to bring back and kind of dive deeper into. So that's fantastic. So thank you. I'm looking forward to having this presented to the public later tonight and getting, other board members' input into it. So this was, I think, a really good time for you to kind of test it out on us. So
I
thank you.
And I really appreciate your insight on, like, this looks overwhelming, because like I said, I see it all the time, and that mirror, I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I only have one question. Do we want to have our next meeting on the 12th or the following board meeting?
So when we moved to change these board meetings, it was to align more and make things easier for George, since he's the only board member that does sit on two subcommittees. And I feel like that we were taking a lot of his time. So
You know,
it,
my schedule's now changed again. Next month, I go back to my working at night. So if you want, it's up to you, Brianna. If you want to change it back to those days, I'm happy to do that. I'm around. So I'm on vacation right now, hence the goatee. I got 2 more weeks left of vacation. And when I go back, I'm gonna be on nights again. So so if you want to change it back to to those times, or any dates you want, Brianna, I'm open to anything.
um, I, well, geez, you could put it right back in my court. I, th- I don't know, whatever you guys want to do is fine.
Well, let's start with the date. Do you want the 12th or the following, which I don't know if that's the 26th or the 22nd.
26.
When does the policy meeting?
We have a next one on the 12th.
Okay, let's do the 12th then.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep it the same, like yeah. So it'll be the first Thursday or the second Thursday of the month, the first board meeting of the month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, let's do that.
Cool.
And then we had also talked at the last meeting about making it the hour before the policy meeting. So there's not
4
long
p.m.
break. So 4 o'clock.
And I'll make sure to communicate that. I had that on the agenda, but our calendars were still 3 o'clock. So I'll make sure we get that fixed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then at some point, if we can add to future agenda items, I do want to bring back the things that we were kind of bringing back for updates, which was the attendance recovery, just where we are on that, and maybe get an update on our numbers for this school year and how we're doing with that. And then we were also working on the plan for when schools are shut down. Did we finish that? Is that like pushed out? If Vasquez is done, this is what we're going to do. Is that pushed out and on the website and everything for families? If that's complete, we don't need to bring it back.
It is updated. I don't know that it's on the website. Let me see. Also, that instructional continuity plan gets embedded in the safety plans this year.
Mhm.
So it may be just that we need to post the new safety plans, which we're working on updating right now.
So when we were talking about this before, yes, it's in the safety plan. It's it's a document inside a document inside a document, and that's fantastic. What we were hoping for, and what I was hoping for, was that specific document. If this, then that. If this, then we'll house students here, and then and make that readily accessible to staff and to students and to families. So when that's happening and we're shutting school down tomorrow, people don't have to go, I don't know where that document is. Let me go look in the safety plan, because the safety plan is not where I would look if I were looking on the website for it. I want it to be, I know that it has to be in those other documents and it's part of those, but I also want it to be its own document.
Maybe like a one pager or an infographic.
Yeah, and I don't mind doing
Exactly.
it. The only concern with that is we will probably need the 10 days to get up and running. That is how long we have. 5, I mean, because that takes time to get up and running. My other problem is, and I don't, again, mind posting it, but it's hard to know in advance what the emergency might be. Like, is it gonna be that black and white? Like, if it's Vasquez, we're going to high desert. What if it's, I just don't know if the district would need in an emergency like that, time to meet as a leadership to make sure that we put the right plan in place. Like, we have a proposed plan, but how we know for sure that plan is gonna be the plan in do you know what I'm saying? In the unforeseen, like, you don't really know what's gonna happen. Should we just
Right.
a proposed plan?
So this is why we should bring this back for a future agenda item, so that we can chit chat about this at a future date. So it could be, I'm not saying have the plan ready for a future agenda item. I'm saying let's bring it back so we can have this conversation
Okay.
at a future date, because we definitely need to have something. Thankfully, we haven't had power outages this year like we've had last year, but that doesn't mean they're not coming next week.
Right.
No, I agree.
And you know, and just to piggyback, whether it's a 1-page infographic, whether it's a 10-page document, we could actually upload these once, there's final approval to the parent link, right, on our webpage as a quick resource, besides the safety plan. And then it could be subject to change, there could be sections.
Right, a fluid document. If
Absolutely.
this, then that, if this, then that. And you know
Right.
what, if that doesn't work, we're gonna come up with something else that works best for students. So we're not locked in, but
Yep.
so that we have some sort of a plan, so we don't have kids sitting at home for 3 weeks.
Right. And I agree, and we can actually even like a separate section, highlight the communication. Always look out for
Right,
final
okay.
communication coming from the district office
Yeah, so if we could just bring this back as a discussion topic, not, I want you to have something done in concrete, approved by administrators, all that. Let's just bring it back for a discussion.
Okay, well, as I'm working on the district plan, again, they're, all the plans overlap, Meadowlark, High Desert. As I'm working on that piece, though, I'll pull those pieces out that we already talked about, as well as the communication piece, and share with cabinet, Dr. Sahakian, as far as like, to get their input as well, and then bring that back to this meeting, if that's okay.
Fantastic.
We
Yeah,
could probably do it in March, because like in February, we're gonna do some more with the dashboard. and
Yeah. that sounds good to me, George. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds perfect.
Okay.
All right, well then we're all good. We're done, right? And anybody have anything else? So we'll go ahead and adjourn at 4:13. Thank you guys so much.
All right. We'll see you
Thank
tonight.
you.
All
See
right,
you.
see you in a few hours.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.